Hello Game Gumshoes fans, this is Chris with Game Gumshoes. Out wandering about, and I wanted to cover some of the stuff from GenCon that you didn't hear on the hall. The hall is basically set up to be the stuff that I bring home. The stuff that you're going to see me out and about playing with everyone. But I did want to cover some of the stuff that I got to see and hear and play while I was at GenCon that I didn't quite get to bring home, whether it was due to the fact that they didn't have any copies of the game available for me to take home, and some of it was just information, like my interview with Wizards of the Coast over their new offerings for the next year or so. I guess the first thing I want to start with is a company called Gale Force 9. They sent me an email saying, hey, you need to stop by our booth because they were releasing their very first board game. Anyone that knows Gale Force 9 knows that they make the accessories for most of the miniatures gaming, whether it be maps, little counters that show, bullet spreads, stuff like that. So that's Gale Force 9. The game they were releasing was called Spartacus. It's based off an HBO TV series that, frankly, I haven't seen, so I don't know how accurate it is, but all the artwork seemed to be taken as direct photos from the TV show, except for the Coliseum, but that's pretty much standard fare. It was one of the first games I played when I got to GenCon. Unfortunately, after talking to the guy one of the three guys who created the game, my demo wasn't exactly right. I thought the game was very broken when I played it. Turns out that the guy who was demoing it didn't quite have a full grasp of how the game ran. I hope to get a copy of Spartacus so I can show it off to everybody around me. Still waiting to hear from Gale Force 9. But it seemed like a pretty interesting game in and of itself. After talking to the designers, I did learn that some of the issues I had, like I said, were based on the demo I did. They weren't correct. But all that being said, there was still one problem I found with the game, and that's that one of the, we'll call them lords, of the game was a little too powerful. I'd say his card is definitely broken. It has a feature on it, a special ability of that particular person, that if you sell off slaves or whatever, you can gain influence. Now, influence is the way you win the game. And we had one player who got up to 10th level, and you only need to be 12th to win, ended up selling off all his slaves and winning the game. Now, the guy who made the game said, that's not a problem. That's strategy. If he wants to do it that way, he can. But even in games like Munchkin, where you can sell off stuff to gain levels in order to try to win the game, there's still a rule stop in there to make it to where you can't just win the game by selling off all your junk. And if they put that stop into Spartacus, I wouldn't have a problem with Spartacus at all. But like I said, overall it seemed like a decent game. Next thing I want to cover is Upper Deck and Cryptozoics deck building games. Yeah, let's use the terminology they gave me. Deck building games. So my first interview with either of those two companies was with Upper Deck, and it was a one-on-one. I sat down with one of the creators of the game, and we played through a hand on a demo version of the board game. I mean, this thing was a complete and total mock-up. Pretty cool though. I thought there was a lot of interactivity. I didn't see a lot of heroes in the game, but the guy pointed out that on the cards it does say the hero's name, but it wasn't as blatant to me as the villains were, and so that might be a little, bit of a pushback. He kept, pointing out that Dominion was one of the very first deck building games, and I'm like, oh no, I didn't really care for Dominion. I bought it, tried to play it once, and threw it back in the cupboard. But this one was very easy. As long as he took time and worked it out with me, I ended up getting the game and was really enjoying myself with it. I'm not a big Marvels fan. I'm more a DC fan, so it was kind of interesting that I was getting into those cards. You'll see characters from the X-Men, the Avengers, in this deck. Your villains are also from those same books. And the nice thing about a deck building game is it's not like the collectible card games where you have to keep buying the best of stuff in order to win a game. In this game, you win the game simply by defeating your enemy, and both players are trying to defeat the enemy. That being said, we go over to Cryptozoic's DC deck building game. Yes, Detective Comics. They had a deck building game as well, and oddly enough, almost all the same mechanics. There were some slight variations, like the DC stuff actually did use their heroes as the main card, so you got special abilities based on your hero, and then you built up your army and defeated enemies in very similar way to the way that the Upper Deck Marvel game was. Although I don't know if it was because I was playing with like 5 other guys plus a dealer. Yes, I'll call him a dealer, because he was just sitting there flipping cards for everybody. He wasn't actually playing in the game. I don't know if it was because it was such a large group, but I didn't feel like I was interacting as much in that game as I did with the Marvel game. I think they're both equally good games, and maybe if I get a copy of the games and sit down and play them with my gaming group, I'll be able to find out if there were flaws that I wasn't getting because we were demoing, because my group likes to rules lawyer everything. So that's that. Both good games. Keep an eye out for them. I think September, October is when they should be coming out, if I remember my information correctly. Neither game was the actual game. They were both mock-ups. So, we'll see. I know at least Upper Deck said they were adding new artwork to it, that wasn't the final artwork. That was just what they wanted it to have, so it would be ready. In fact, the Upper Deck actually comes with a game board for when you get ready to play it. Let me see. Next, I think, is Wizards of the Coast. Let me look at my notes here. That's Spartacus. Okay, no. Catalyst Games. When I was in a demo hall, demoing the Spartacus game, I happened across these amazing looking miniature game. It's called Leviathan. It's kind of a steampunk alternate universe kind of thing. Basically, the way it was told to me is that you had these games, sorry, not games. You have people turning energy and turning basically waterbound battleships. They vaguely look like submarines. They managed to make them fly. And so if you can picture giant submarines as dirigibles, having air battles, that was what I got out of Leviathan. It looked like it was a very simplistic game system, but without having a set of rules and a game sitting in front of me, you know, that's kind of hard to really determine. It was a $100 kit. You did get some amazing ships. There is some slight assembly. It seems to be one of the things that's coming up and becoming popular right now is the Warhammer style little plastic miniatures that you paint and make battles with. Now, unlike some recent games that I've been trying to review but am still in the process of painting and building, Leviathan does not need to be painted. It only needs to be painted if you want it painted. So, you know, that's a thumbs up for me right there. If I can just slap it on space and go, that works for me. Because I won't say that I don't do miniatures gaming, because I did. Star Wars. You know, the hobby of painting your miniatures and building your miniatures and modifying your miniatures is all fun and good. It's not something that I've had a lot of time to sit down and play with, except at game day back in Chicago last month. But that's a totally different story altogether. If Catalyst sees this video and they want to send me a copy of Leviathan, I'll be glad to provide them with my address so they can send it to me and we can get them sorted out. Let's see. Z-Man Games, they were there. Okay. There was a zombie game, because let's face it, right now zombies are the big thing. Everybody loves zombies, wants zombies. This was called the Zopocalypse. Yes, Z-Pocalypse. Now, Kid Gumshoe loved the game when we were sitting there playing it. Somewhere along the lines of him describing everything about the board, and you know, kept having to tell me that they would be different pieces when they physically made the board and everything like that, I kind of lost track of something, and honestly I started falling asleep trying to play the game. I did do better than the 3 people who were staying awake through the entire thing, but that's just random dice rolls, honestly. It has nothing to do with any planning or skill on my part, which actually should say something about the game, that, you know, somebody who's falling asleep can still wind up on top of a heap of dead people. It's on Kickstarter, so look for it, you know, cast your own opinion. I can't really say one way or the other on whether it's a good game, because honestly I didn't really react. Maybe I'll put Kid Gumshoe on and let her voice her opinion on it. So, another company I got an email from is called Nuco Toys. They're a very new company, and what they've created is a digital physical hybrid game. I know everybody plays all the games on Facebook and things like that, but in this particular instance, you basically need an iPad. They did say that they're trying to get it converted over to be able to be used on an Android platform, but we'll see how long that takes. Right now, the main games are currently available for free download on iTunes, but you can get the playing cards, the physical part of the game, at like a Discovery store and stuff like that. The 2 games that they have are Animal Planet and Monsterology. You may have heard me talk about this. I don't remember if it's on the GenCon video or not. We were given 2 little booster packs of the cards. Unfortunately, I don't have an iPad, so I can't really test it out, but I do have some friends that are going to let me come over and play with their iPads. I did get to see it working at at GenCon, so I do know that it does function the way they claim it would. But basically, you load up this app, you tap the cards onto your iPad, and it basically ports the animal on that card into the game. And okay, apparently I mentioned iPad too much because the alarms are just going off. But it ports them into the game. You have the physical card that you can carry around with you, and you sit there and interact with the animals in the Animal Planet one, and it shows videos of the animals and gives you all kinds of facts on the animals, and you can actually take the animals out and hunt down other animals. It's pretty cool. I was impressed with it. The Monsterology, very interactive. You take your little monsters and they battle each other. But the upside to the Monsterology game is with your booster pack of cards, you can take, and there's a card game that you can make out of using the basic boosters. It's like 40 cards per deck, and 2 people can fight their monsters against each other. And there are special ability cards and things like that in that game. So definitely, give that a look-see, because unlike the Dragonology card game and the Dragonology board game, which weren't the most fantastic of games, the Monsterology actually seemed like it worked fairly well. They actually seem to think about how it should work, and the cards aren't so cheaply made that they're going to start catching each other's corners and things like that. Okay, so I don't want to leave out Calliope Games. Calliope Games is a game company I've done reviews for before. If you've seen the Gotham video, you're familiar with at least one of their games. If any of you remember Sorrow by WizKids, they now have the rights to Sorrow. And this year, they released Sorrow of the Seven Seas. It was a Kickstarter campaign, and I actually got to see it in full, sales rush. If you like Sorrow, this adds a new element to Sorrow that makes it so much cooler. Yes, they added sea monsters. So the sea monsters are placed based on how many people are playing, and they randomly move at the beginning of the turn. So you could get wiped out by a sea monster, or you could wipe other sea monsters out with other sea monsters, and just like you can fall off the edge of the board, so can the sea monsters. So give it a look-see, and check out all their other games too when you go and look at them. I want to cover Wizards of the Coast, because I did spend a lot of time with them. I went and tried to check out the game hall that they had set up. It was very packed, very packed. Obviously, they're gearing up for D&D Next. I'm on one of the playtest groups. I've got all the stuff at home, and I've been checking it out, and I don't know. We'll see what happens. But what I did see, and talking to Wizards of the Coast, is that they're doing this whole Rise of the Underdark, where Loth sends out all her drow minions to go out and conquer the upper world. That way she can take over the planet. And, that's just what evil spider queen demons do. It's just a thing. They had some amazing sculptures of her and Dritz. There were pictures on our Facebook page of them holding Little Red Stapler. It seemed to be pretty fun. They had some cool t-shirts out and about for people to purchase. They were also releasing, selling all the new product that they just released, like the Gygax special editions that are going towards the Gary Gygax Fund, as well as the Gamma World stuff and other box sets that they're starting to release. There was a whole bank of computers where people could sit there and demo D&D online. But Rise of the Underdark, it's going to be their big thing for the next couple years. They did work with the authors of the Forgotten Realms books. So you're going to see content by R.A. Salvatore. You're going to see stuff by Terry Denning. I hope I got that right. No, Troy Denning. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But you're going to see your favorite authors from the Forgotten Realms contributing content towards this. It's definitely a joint collaboration. If you get a chance, check out what they have to offer. There is a keynote speech that was done at the beginning of GenCon about the whole Rise of the Underdark. I'm going to tell you what the person I interviewed from Wizard of the Coast said, as you saw in, the keynote speech. So definitely go view the keynote speech, see what it has to offer, see what kind of information you can get out of it. There'll be 3 seasons of play for the new Rise of the Underdark, the beginning. The second season of play, you actually play as a drow. So you go from hero play to monster play, and then the third season just wraps everything up. They have a large volume of content already created for this, so you'll get to see that. Let's see, there are going to be a whole bunch of all new novels for Forgotten Realms and that sort of thing over the coming year. And in early 2013, you're going to see a lot of that in digital format, as well as, on the shelves. And they're also going to be doing an upcoming event, which I personally am looking forward to. I know a lot of my other old school D&D people aren't necessarily looking forward to it because they already still have the books. I have to admit, I do have a lot of my old books, but dragging them everywhere at my age just gets old. So ebook PDFs, it's the way of the future. Suck it up. We've got to assimilate somehow, and this is going to be it. But they are having this big, huge event where they're going to release all of the old TSR, early Wizards of the Coast, anything that's got Dungeons and Dragons on it is going to get released in this ebook PDF rush. And so you'll be able to pick up modules that you weren't able to get before, and source books that you couldn't get before. I'm pretty sure they're not going to be able to release original deities and demigods again, but if you're smart like me, you've got one still. Although it didn't last long because of the lawsuit and everything, but that's beside the point. I've got to go online and pull up their new sorcerer and a new warlock classes. I know I just recently did a survey on what spells I thought that the wizards, the clerics, and the druids and all that should get, and it was interesting, mostly because I couldn't remember what spells went to who. Downside to playing my first adventure so much. Oh yeah, in the past 2 years or so, companies have been trying to re-release games that us old school players really enjoyed in a new colorful format, some new rules added in, variations of play, to try to help combine the young gamers and us old people together. Games like Talisman, Wiz War was just recently released by Fantasy Flight Games, and the Talisman went through a phase where it was owned by somebody other than Games Workshop, and then went back to Games Workshop. Well, the reissue of the Games Workshop, very nice. Looks just like the original Talisman, and I felt good about that, even though I still have the original Talisman. May pick up the new one just for the new artwork. Plus, from game day, I found out that there's going to be a Warhammer version of Talisman being released called Relic, so keep an eye out for that one as well. Wiz War was kind of a mixed bag. They gave you a bunch of new components, beautiful looking board, all that fun stuff, but unless you played it like the old school, it kind of lost something. But like I said, beautiful components, beautiful looking game, but some of the rules variations and stuff like that were just unnecessary. That being said, I know I say that phrase a lot, Wizards of the Coast has redone the classic TSR game, Dungeon. Now, all the images I saw of Dungeon look fantastic. And I'm going to wait to see how it turns out. Hopefully I can get a copy from Wizards of the Coast to show off to everybody. But as it sits, just keep an eye out. Thanks for joining me.